Hello everyone, we are going to present the workshop on sutures and knots, that is सीवन कर्म.
अष्टविध शस्त्रकर्म. सुश्रुतांनी प्रमुख शस्त्रकर्माचे 8 प्रकार सांगितले आहेत. ते पुढील प्रमाणे: तच्च शस्त्रकर्म अष्टविधम तद्यथा छेद्यम भेद्यम लेख्यम वेद्यम यशम आहार्यम विश्राव्यम सीव्यम इति. भेदन छेदन लेखन वेधन एशन आहारन विश्रावण सीवन. सीवन कर्म. व्याख्या: व्रणोष्ठ हे वेल, सूत्र, गुडूची तंतू इत्यादी द्रव्यांद्वारे सीवन करून जवळ आणणे म्हणजे सीवन कर्म होय. सीवन कर्म योग्य व्याधी: सीव्या मेधसमुत्था च भिन्ना सुलिखिता गदा सद्यो व्रणाच्च ये चैव चलसंधी व्यपाश्रिता. सुश्रुतांनुसार मेधसमुथ व्रण, सुलिखित व्रण, सद्यो व्रण, भिन्न व्रण, गतिशील संधिस्थानी उत्पन्न व्रण. चरकांनुसार सीव्यम कुक्षराद्यम तू गंभीरम यद्विपाटितम. कुक्षी किंवा उदरस्थानी उत्पन्न गंभीर व्रण अत्यंत गंभीर स्थानापर्यंत छेदन केले आहे असे व्रण. सीवन कर्म अयोग्य: न क्षाराग्नी विषयजुष्टा न च मारुतवाहिन नान्तलोहित शैल्या च तेषु सम्यक विशोधनम. क्षार अग्नी विषामुळे उत्पन्न ज्या व्रणातून सतत वायू वाहत राहतो, दूषित रक्तस्थित व्रण, शल्यस्थित व्रण, वरील व्रणांचे सम्यक शोधन केल्याशिवाय सीवन कर्म करू नये. सीवन कर्म सिद्धांत: नातिदूरे निकृष्टे वा सूची कर्माणि पातयेत दूराद्रुजो व्रणोष्ठस्य सन्निकृष्टे अवलुंचनम. सीवन कर्म व्रणोष्ठापासून अतिदूर किंवा अतिसमीप करू नये. अतिदूर केल्यास व्रणोष्ठामध्ये वेदना होतात, तर अतिसमीप केल्यास व्रणोष्ठामध्ये अवलुंचन होते. सीवन पूर्वकर्म: यत्र सीव्यो व्रणस्तत्र चलास्ति शल्यपांसु तृणरोम शुष्करक्तादि अन्यपोह्य विच्छिन्न प्रविलंबी मांसम संध्यस्थीनि च यथास्थाने सम्यक स्थापयित्वा स्थिते रक्ते यथा. सीवन योग्य व्रणात चलास्ती, तृणकाष्ठ, पाषाण इत्यादी आगंतु शल्य, मातीचे कण, गवत, केस, अशुद्ध रक्त असल्यास त्यांचे निर्हरण करावे. छिन्न झालेले मांस लोंबकळत असल्यास त्याला स्वस्थानी ठेवावे व रक्तस्राव बंद करून व्रण सीवन योग्य झाला आहे असे समजून सीवन करावे. सीवन पश्चात कर्म. अथ क्षोमपिचू छन्नं सुस्युतं प्रतिसारयेत प्रियंगवञ्जनं यष्ट्याव रौद्रचूर्णे समन्तता शल्यकीफलचूर्णैर्वा क्षोममध्यामेन वा पुनः ततो व्रणं यथा योगं बद्ध्वाचारी कमादिशेत. प्रथम व्रण औषधयुक्त क्षोमवस्त्र किंवा पिचूने आच्छादावा. अवचूर्णन: प्रियंगू, संविरांजन, यष्टीमधू, लोद्र यांचे सूक्ष्म चूर्ण, शल्यकी फलचूर्ण किंवा अतसी भस्म. बंधन: आवश्यकतेनुसार बंधन करावे. व्रणितोपासन विधीचे पालन करावे. सीवन प्रकार. सुश्रुत व अष्टांग संग्रहानुसार 4 प्रकार सांगितलेले आहेत. 1. वेल्लितक दॅट इज कंटिन्युअस. 2. गोफनिका दॅट इज मॅट्रेस. 3. तुन्नसेवनी दॅट इज सबक्युटिक्युलर. 4. रुजुग्रंथी दॅट इज इंटरप्टेड. अभिघातज व्रणात आघाताच्या तीव्रतेनुसार तथायोग्य सीवन कर्म करावे. सीवन उपकरणे. 1. सूची. 2. सूत्र. सीवन सूत्र म्हणजे सीवन द्रव्य. ततो व्रणं समुन्नम्य स्थापयित्वा यथास्थितं सीव्येत सूक्ष्मेत सूत्रेण वल्केन अश्मन्तकस्य वा क्षणज क्षोमसूत्राभ्यां स्नायवा बालेन वा पुनः मूर्वा गुडुचितानेर्वा सीव्येद वेल्लितकं शने. सीवन सूत्र म्हणून विविध द्रव्यांचा वापर केला जातो, जसे सूक्ष्मसूत्र, अश्मंतक त्वकतंतू, शन, क्षोम, स्नायू, बाल, मुर्वा आणि गुडूची तंतू. सूची कशी असावी? सुश्रुतांनुसार अग्रभागी तीक्ष्ण आणि गात्र मालती पुष्पवृंताप्रमाणे गोल, तसेच पालकाप्यांनुसार 8 अंगुल लांबीची आणि हत्तीच्या सोंडेप्रमाणे असावी. सूचीचे प्रकार. सुश्रुतांनी सूचीचे 3 प्रकार सांगितले आहेत. 1. वृत्तसूची, जिची लांबी 2 अंगुल असून तिचा उपयोग अल्पमांस व संधिस्थित व्रणात केला जातो. 2. आयत किंवा त्रिधारा सूची, तिची लांबी 3 अंगुल असून तिचा उपयोग अत्यधिक मांसलस्थानी उत्पन्न व्रणामध्ये केला जातो. 3. धनुर्वक्रा सूची, तिचा उपयोग मर्मस्थानी, फलकोश, उदरस्थानी उत्पन्न व्रणात केला जातो.
What is suture? Suture is a stitch or series of stitches made to secure a position of the edges of a surgical or traumatic wound. What is suture material? Suture material is an artificial fiber used to keep wounds together until they hold themselves by natural fibers, that's collagen, which is synthesized and woven into a stronger scar. Suturing goals: provide adequate tension for wound closure but loose enough to prevent tissue ischemia and necrosis, protecting underlying tissues from infection or other irritating factors, preventing post-operative hemorrhage, permitting healing by primary intention, preventing bone exposure resulting in delayed healing and bone resorption, permit proper flap position. Ideal suture qualities: minimal tissue reaction, smoothness, minimum tissue drag, easily sterilizable, adequate tensile strength, ease of handling, minimum memory, knot security, cost effectiveness, favorable absorption profile, resistance to infection. Instruments for suturing: first needle, second needle holder, and third suture material. Needle: it is a sharp pointed instrument which can puncture the tissue, guiding thread to suture to pass a ligature around a vessel or any ductular lumen or structure. It is classified in three different ways based on the age: round body needle, cutting needle; based on curvature, straight, curved; based on existence of eye, atraumatic, that is eyeless, and traumatic, that is eyed. Needle holder: smaller distal blades with crisscross serrations, often with a groove in the middle, held between thumb and middle finger, available in different sizes. By placing needle at junction of proximal 2/3 and distal 1/3, one can get good control and grip. These are the instruments for suturing.
Let's see how to hold a needle holder and load a needle. First, insert the thumb and ring finger in holes 1/3 of the way in. Put the index finger for stabilization. It locks automatically. Push outward with the thumb to unlock. Load the needle half to 2/3 the way across. Always protect the needle when you are done by turning the tip inwards.
Suture material types according to behavior of tissue: absorbable and non-absorbable; according to structure, monofilament and multifilament; according to origin, natural and synthetic. Some examples of absorbable and non-absorbable suture material. Absorbable, natural, plain catgut, light, derived from submucosa of sheep, intestine, or serosa of beef intestine, used for ligating superficial blood vessels and subcutaneous fatty tissues. Chromic catgut, yellow, treated with chromium salt. It may be used in the presence of infection and in cancer cases. Non-absorbable, natural, surgical silk, black, derived from the cocoon of the silkworm larvae, trigger inflammatory reactions, undergo proteolysis and undetected by 2 years. Used in ligating major blood vessels, tendon repair, etc. Surgical steel and wires, high tensile strength and holds very well. Used in orthopedic, neurosurgery and thoracic surgery. Others, for example, virgin silk, cotton, linen. Absorbable, synthetic, polygalactine, that is vicryl, purple, copolymer of lactide and glycolide. Minimal tissue reaction, used in general soft tissue, approx, intestinal anastomosis, vessels ligation in all surgical specialties. Devon, polyglycolic acid. Purple or VRAM, home polymers of glycolide. Avoid in adipose tissue and loses fibrile strength more rapidly than vicryl. Others, for example, polyglycomate, that is Maxon, polydioxone, PDS, polyglycaprone, monocryl. Monofilament grossly appears as single strand of suture material. All fibers run parallel. Minimal trauma resist harboring microorganisms. Ties smoothly. Possesses memory. Requires more knots than multifilament suture. For example, nylon, monocryl, PDS, proline. Non-absorbable synthetic nylon is a polyamide polymer, blue or white. 81% tensile strength at 1 year and 66% at 11 years. Elicits minimal tissue reaction, has good memory, pliable when moist. Pre-moistened form is used in cosmetic plastic surgery. Its elasticity makes it useful for skin closure and herniorrhapy. Others: polypropylene, proline, polyester fiber, Marilyn or Dacron. Multifilament fibers are twisted or braided together. Greater resistance in tissue. Provides good handling and case of tying. Fewer knots required. Examples: vicryl, braided, chromic, twisted, silk, braided.
Tensile strength. Straight pull tensile strength for breaking the minimum amount of tension which is required for filament. Tensile strength. Straight pull tensile strength for breaking the minimum amount of tension which is required for filament. Knot pull tensile strength. Minimum amount of tension required to break knot given by material is known as knot pull tensile strength, and it is more important in surgical practice. Hence, surgeon is more connected towards this. It is measured during manufacturing by a meter and is expressed in kg.
Suture size. Sized according to diameter with 0 as reference size. Numbers alone indicate progressively larger sutures, 1, 2, etc. Numbers followed by a 0 indicate progressively smaller sutures, 2O, 4O, etc. Smaller, that is thick, and thin are larger, 3O, 2O, 1O, 0, 1. Suturing technique. Needle should be grasped with the needle holder approximately 1/3 distance from the eye and 2/3 from the point. Needle should be placed perpendicular to surface, being entered and pushed through times following curvature of the needle and rotating the wrist. Needle enters 2 to 3 mm away from the margin of the flap and exits at the same distance on the opposite side. The two ends of the suture are then laid in a knot and cut 0.8 cm above the knot. Never close under tension. Types: simple continuous suture, locking continuous suture, simple interrupted suture, simple buried suture, mattress horizontal suture, mattress vertical suture, subcuticular suture, figure of 8 suture. Simple continuous suture. Useful in pediatrics, rapid, easily removable, provides effective hemostasis, distributed tension evenly along length, can also be locked with each stitch.
The suture needle is advanced to the depth of the wound margin and then rotated up through opposite skin margin and the landmark site for opposition of the wound, and then secure it with the knot. The needle is then reinserted in a continuous fashion such that the suture passes perpendicular to the incision line.
Locking continuous sutures. Uses: long edentulous areas, tuberosities or retromolar areas. Advantage: avoid the multiple knot of the interrupted suture.
At first, a single interrupted suture is used to make a tie. The needle is next inserted through the underlying surface of the flap. The needle is then passed through the remaining loop of the suture and the suture is pulled tightly, thus locking it. This procedure is continued until the final suture is tied off at the terminal end.
Simple interrupted sutures. Suturing is passed through both edges at an equal depth and distance from the incision and knot is tied. Common and stronger. Each suture is independent and loosening of one suture will not produce loosening of other.
The suture needle is advanced to the depth of the wound margin and rotated up through the opposite skin margin and the landmark site for the opposition of the wound and secure it with the knot. Then cut the thread. Again repeat the same procedure to take another stitch.
Mattress horizontal suture. Used for high tension wounds or wounds with fragile skin. The knot is parallel adjacent to the wound edge. Useful in maximizing wound eversion, reducing dead space and minimizing the tension across the wound.
The needle is passed from one edge of the incision to another. And again from the latter edge to the first edge in a horizontal manner.
Mattress vertical suture. It has a far near order of bites. The knot is perpendicular to the wound edge. Useful in maximizing wound eversion, reducing dead space and minimizing the tension across the wound. Simple buried suture. This suture is extremely important for distributing wound tension to the dermis rather than the epidermis and also for closing dead space. It provides longer term support to the healing wound and improves the cosmetic result.
The wound edge is everted with a skin hook and then an absorbable suture is introduced at the subcutaneous level and brought back out at dermal level on the same side of the wound. Then reinsert the needle on opposite side from dermal level to subcutaneous level and brought out. Then tie a knot.
Subcuticular sutures, usually running but can be interrupted. Intradermal horizontal bites, cosmetic suture, difficult to put in curved wound, allowed to remain for longer without producing crosshatch scarring.
Starting from the chosen apex, take a deep bite to the epidermis that should curve parallel to the skin surface and exit in the same plane. Ensuring that your surface is not too superficial will also aid wound eversion. Perform a mirror image on the opposing side, keeping the bites the same depth and length. If one side of your wound is longer than the other, bigger bites must be taken on the longer side of the wound to compensate for excess skin at the apex of the wound. Continue this down the length of the wound, pulling the suture taut as you oppose the skin edges.
Figure of 8 suture, most commonly used for extraction socket closure as well as adaptation of gingival papilla around the tooth. Advantage: rapid closure. Disadvantage: due to its orientation, it is difficult to remove and it leaves a significant amount of suture threads inside the socket.
Take two parallel simple running sutures in the same direction and tie a knot.
Suture removal of different body parts. On face after 2 to 3 days, scalp after 5 days, trunk after 7 days, arm or leg after 7 to 10 days, foot 10 to 14 days. Knots. Knot is very important part of suturing. After completing the sutures, two ends are tied in knot and cut 0.8 cm above it. Knot should never lie on incision line. Surgical knots are the knots used to bind suture materials together while binding tissue in surgery. Square or reef knot. Square knot formed by wrapping the suture around the needle holder once in opposite directions between ties. 3 ties are recommended. The two-hand square knot is the easiest and most reliable for tying most suture materials. It may be used to tie surgical gut, virgin silk, surgical cotton and surgical stainless steel.
These are two rope ends. Put left over right, then wrap around, right over left, wrap around, simply pull it.
Surgeons or friction knot. It is formed by two throws of suture around the needle holder on the first tie and one throw in the opposite direction on the second tie. The surgeons or friction knot is recommended for tying braided synthetic absorbable suture, vicryl, ethibond, polyester suture, ethylon nylon suture, mercilin, polyester fiber, neurolon, nylon suture.
These are two rope ends. Wrap 2 times around each other, then in opposite direction wrap it once and simply pull it.
Granny's or slip knot. Granny's knot involve a tie in one direction followed by a tie in the same direction and third tie in the opposite direction to square the knot and hold it permanently. It has the tendency to slip when subjected to increasing pressure. It is not recommended.
Take 2 ends, place left over right, then wrap it around. Repeat, place left over right and wrap it around and simply pull it. Thanks for watching.